r/AskReddit. Serious, who was the worst coworker you ever had? Worked at an Americanized Japanese fast casual restaurant. We used to cook these gigantic pots of noodles. Like, you better use proper lifting procedures or you'll hurt yourself. It was a daily affair. From the stove they get tossed in an ice bath and then portioned into roughly 1 million individual bags. Obviously nobody liked doing it, but it had to be done. This one kid, who always sucked, slow, late, dumb, complained, just generally bad, decided that if he just poured them down the garbage disposal he wouldn't have to portion them. Not including the water, it was probably 40 pounds of noodles, 18 kilograms. Well, it clogged the pipes to such an extent that floor drains across the back of house started flooding, and we couldn't use a dishwasher or drain sinks. And guess what? We just cooked more freaking noodles. I know it's not the biggest deal, but the selfishness required to destroy product/property. Screw our shift over. Really screw the next shift over. And the stupidity to think nobody would notice, just to escape some tedium, when he was going to be in the building all day anyway, just boggles my mind. I would prefer to work with the aggressive felon who would threateningly coerce coworkers into seeing his shitty metal band perform afternoon shows at strip clubs. Thank you very much. One I hired. She was our neighbor. A young mother whose husband was a truck driver. I knew they struggled with finances. Had been evicted from past apartments. Gone to their church for help with food and utilities, etc. When she told me she was laid off from her job at a bank, I hired her at the store I managed. It was the beginning of the busy season and I figured that would give her a few months to get back on her feet while she looked for something back in banking. Instead, she worked for me less than 2 weeks. In that time, she stole from the register and another employee, was late twice, and quit by leaving her uniforms balled up in a grocery bag with a note saying she just couldn't do it anymore. That chick was an A1 scam artist, and I held a grudge against her for a long time. Oh, that's the worst. People like this are why so many are hardened towards sob stories and caution against acts of charity, which is a shame. Because not everyone who needs help will burn you. What made you give up the grudge? Did you forgive her for some reason, or did it just turn into pity eventually? He was 17 at the time. We'll call him Jerry. We were working in a grocery store when I met him. Jerry wanted so bad to be a bodybuilder bro. He idolized The Rock. He spent countless hours in the gym every day. He woke up at 4 AM to run 5k. Only slept for 20-minute increments throughout the day because that's what Marines do. And he made sure everyone knew about his no excuses attitude. And all he ever did was complain and make excuses. Jerry would give speeches about hard work and dedication, and whatever other BS he obviously pulled from a motivational Instagram that day. He really did put time in at the gym though. He had the arms and chest to show it. But if you gave the kid a basic task he was useless. Cleaning the bathrooms. He left stains and toilet paper everywhere. Stocking shelves. Product was always facing the wrong way or in the wrong spot. Offering additional assistance to customers. He never bothered. Always got yelled at. And never changed. Even just consistently working was an issue for Jerry because he had to stop like every hour to eat a snack or drink a Monster. For some reason Jerry thought I was his friend, and he would always complain to me when he got yelled at by management. He made up this conspiracy theory that management hated him and wanted to see him fail. According to him, he was never actually fucking up. Management was just bullying him. He would say shit like they're just jealous. They don't work as hard as me, and that makes them jealous. Jerry lived in a fantasy land that was a product of too many quotes he probably got from some bodybuilding calendar. Eventually Jerry quit because he was tired of the bullshit, and he went to work in fast food under his older brother. Jerry got fired by his older brother Jerry tried joining the military, but apparently couldn't hack it. Tried becoming a cop, but couldn't hack it. Now he's a valet at the local mega church, and he recently turned 25. He'll probably get fired, or quit there too. Thank God he didn't become a cop. I need to see your license, bro. I said get on the ground. Bruh. He stole from people. Would let himself in uninvited to homes. Groom and prey on teens, 13 to 17. Harassed a girl for years, and pulled a knife out on her when she rejected him. And more. He didn't get the boot until years later, because he was such a good worker. The guy's in his mid to late 30s and still does this shit, working not far from a middle school and his former workplace. When any of the above happened, the higher ups would say he never acted like around me, and would ignore the situation. Not another chomo, I hate those pose. I worked in a bookstore. We had a cafe and the cafe manager was my worst coworker ever. She was nice and all but so unhygienic. We'd had to discuss more than once not using the dish sink in the cafe's back room to bathe herself in. She always smelled slightly sour. Well, one day, while covering the cafe manager's break, an employee discovered a pair of freshly stained underwear that she'd washed in the dish sink hanging off the counter in the cafe's back room. She got fired for that one. Edit. She was not homeless. I'd driven her home more than once when her car was totaled, and from what we were told she owned her home. Other issues? Maybe. Couldn't say and I won't speculate, but regardless, it isn't a minimum wage employee's job to look out for their bosses who make twice as much as they do. IDK how she even got promoted, honestly. I will say she was promoted a few months before the general manager was fired and replaced, and then she was fired by the new GM after this event. Was her name Jessica? I had one like that. She had real bad eczema on her hands. Which, no judge. Sorry for your affliction. But she would try to make food without wearing gloves. We all wore gloves and we weren't shedding scabs and skin cells. I still remember my teenaged horror when she was like, they want extra pickles, and she shoved her hand into the pickle bucket and threw a hard full on there. Well shit. Maybe it was psoriasis? Anyway, hands were not well. This made me gag. I work with a rockstar employee. This means they're fucking brilliant, but a nightmare to work with. They frequently forget to attend meetings. Work hours that piss off everyone else. They're a complete hypocrite when it comes to working standards. Bitch about everyone else. Piss off their coworkers by their constant, but mostly valid, complaining and can't follow the simple rules everyone else in the company has to follow. Unfortunately, they are absolutely amazing at their core job and we'd be fucked without them, because our workplace is obsessed with hiring cheap overqualified. So we suck it up and have them contribute in a different way to our already stupidly toxic environment. Why the fuck haven't I left this shit show of a company yet? I hope we don't work for the same org. I know someone who is exactly the way you described. In my 12-year career, I've worked with at least 7 of these people. Software engineer? 7 in 12 years seems about right for that. She was actually a very nice person, but she made my job so much more difficult. When I was a new graduate vet at my first job, there was another new vet working there as well. Now, I have some self-esteem and confidence issues myself, but she was something else. For months, she'd come find me for nearly literally every other consult to get me to examine her animal to make sure she didn't miss anything, or talk to her clients, because she wasn't able to say things like no, this doesn't need antibiotics to them. I was effectively doing 2 jobs half the time. It got even worse when one senior vet got sick and the other quit. So it was literally just me and her at what was supposed to be a 4-vet practice for 6 weeks. Not to stick up for her or anything, but the fact you were able to cover basically the entire house while you and her were there probably meant the world to her. Some people just aren't sure. and animals are super hard to read sometimes, and while you had your own internal grievances, you probably made the right call better than she would have, and she recognized that in you. I quite hope you are in a much better station given your strength and experience. Nor Jude. Not a vet, but a doctor here. First couple days it's cute-ish. Carry on being like that when everyone is pretty much stretched, and I'm starting to think of calling up the GMC and telling them you're not a safe doctor. My manager. After break a girl didn't come back, and I asked why and my manager said it was because her grandfather passed away, and then said she could have at least finished her shift. Apostrophe. A while back I had a friend on life support, hours away from dying. So I called into work and left a message explaining the situation. For context, I was 18 working at a trampoline park. Psychopath Karen manager calls me back to tell me that, because it wasn't a family member, that it's not an excused absence. Yeah lady, like I give a fraction of a fuck. I quit that job so damn fast her head spun. Good. That's complete bullshit. I worked for a company that gave me compassionate leave without me needing to ask when my best friend's brother passed away and I had to go interstate for his funeral. If you are grieving, then it should be grounds for leave. I don't care if your goldfish passed away and you're sad, you should be able to take time off. So many managers need to get their heads out of their asses. The subject matter expert who was supposed to be my mentor decided she was threatened by my existence and seized every opportunity to try to get me fired. I didn't get fired. I worked extra hard to figure it all out on my own and eventually got promoted because of it. So fuck you, Janet. Had one of those. She was my supervisor at a school. Story is, a teacher stole money from the school and ran off to Brazil. Since it was the middle of the year, and it was a small kindergarten class, school decided not to hire a replacement, but place a teacher from another class in her stead and hire an aide, me, to help her out. This power tripping, crazy ass supervisor still took it very personally for some reason, and made it her mission to make my life miserable while I was there and run me off, so I could never become a teacher or some shit. The thing is, I was only meant to be there for the remainder of year and move on. It was never meant to be a permanent position. The cherry on top is that I was doing it as a favor for the owner of the school. Teaching has never been a career prospect of mine, but she didn't care despite me stating that. I have no idea what she was so threatened for. I stayed because it was extra money for me, as I only had to work for a few extra hours a day for half a year. But there were times where I wanted to sock her on the mouth. Bet she's real proud of running me off. I would bet she tells the story once a year at the very least. My first job out of college, I worked in an hour department. We hired a new VP of hours. So my boss's new boss. Before day one, I scheduled a flight of hers and forwarded her all the information along with a friendly email saying that I was very excited that she was starting at our company. I told her to let me know if she needed anything. Very typical email for me to send. Didn't matter your role at the company. Day 1. She walks in and asks for me specifically. I stood up and smiled and went to shake her hand warmly. Because who asks for the lowest on the totem pole? She refused to shake my hand and showed me an email. The email I sent her with her flight information. She asked what was wrong with it. I was alarmed and read through it again. Then had to sheepishly admit I wasn't sure, but I'd love to know for next time. She said, "You come across as such a brown noser. I came to talk to you first, so you could rub your face in my ass now, and we could get it over with." I told her that's how I talk to everyone at the company. I see us all as a team and that's how I work. She guffawed and handed me a piece of paper she had shoved in her pocket. "Here, good to know you are for real. You can get started." Then, my list of tasks included getting her computer set up, already done. Her email up and running, already done. Her new passwords, already done. And a few other things for comfort around her office, which I could complete in about 5 minutes. I did so and returned promptly. She slapped the piece of paper out of my hand and called me a liar. I told her making sure that she was comfortable on her first day was part of my job and I accomplish many of the tasks before new employees arrive. She asked me to escort another employee into her office. So I went and got that employee and brought them down to the new VP's office. That employee was promptly fired. No reason given, and the two had never spoken before. And I was asked to escort that employee out. It was at that moment I decided to start looking for new roles. The new VP basically made me her bitch for the 3 months while I looked. I was denied any vacation requests, sick leave, breaks, when my peers in my department could do whatever, whenever. I finally got an offer and went to resign with my 2 weeks notice. I told my direct boss first, who congratulated me, and he also said he'd tell the VP for me, since he was so worried about her reaction. The new VP came in screaming about how working for her was the opportunity of a lifetime. How could I pass that up? I'm an idiot. That's why nobody can be trusted. Lots of other shit went down with that woman, but I was very happy to walk out that door. TL. Doctor, new VP was a bitch. Made my life hell for months while I looked for a new job. Edit. Wow. This sorta blew up. Let me answer some questions. The owner hired her. He enabled all of this. There was no reporting her, because it would have been directly to him, and that would have gotten us fired immediately. Why didn't I shut down and turn into a bitch? Because I'm a rug, and you can step all over me. Especially when I was 22. I'm more likely to stick up for myself now. How was that firing allowed to happen? I'm located in an at-will state, which means in short, that anyone can be fired for any reason at any time without just cause, so long as that reason is not discriminatory. Trust me when I say that there was more than one spectacular firing, worthy of popcorn. Awful to watch, unfold in real life, when she was there. Another story about this bitch, about 1 month into her tenure. She pulled all of us into a room and made sure we were sitting down. She then told us that a department member of ours had committed suicide over the weekend. We were shocked and saddened and obviously emotional. VP then did 2 things. She didn't let us go home to mourn in peace, and we weren't allowed to tell anyone that this employee had died. Only that they were no longer at the company. I could only apologize when people asked. Say I was not allowed to talk about it, and quietly suggest that they Google her and that they could come to me with any concerns. Her obituary was public and one of the first things you would see on a cursory Google search. VP bitch went to the funeral on the company's behalf and forbade us from going. We ended up putting a picture of her up and paying our respects that way in a corner of the office. Everyone was looking for a new role after that. Screaming about how working for her was the opportunity of a lifetime. I don't get people like that. Do you really think so highly of yourself that you think someone working elsewhere is a step down? Yes. Actually, that is exactly the way they think. You've reached the end. You're a star. Destroy the subscribe button for more like that.